Hi, this is Brad Dyke saying hi to everybody out there, and I just wanted to reach out to you as I've finished the deployment of my two racks in the new enterprise model for DevOps procedures and guidelines and so on. Behind me, I decided I was going to do a view value on the KVM network and how you should bring one into your network and why you do it in a certain way and some mistakes you don't want to make along the way. Here you have what we call the Belkin Series Ominview Pro 3, or I call the 3000. It's an 8-port KVM switch that can do PS2, USB, and VGA 15 pin. It also has a refresh cycle and is daisy chainable into a multitude of Omniview switches, which can be chained from the primary, in this case, 00 to 01 to 03, and so on and so on. But this switch is a good overall switch commonly used in data centers, and you can get them pretty cheap because they do cycle them out over time. And that's exactly what I did here. I bought this switch from a clearance house on a data center so that it could be there for my needs. One thing to remember, as you can probably see behind me, I have over 8 servers, actually 12 servers that are behind me that require connectivity, but I only have an 8-port switch. Now, the 8-port switch is basically designed in such a way so that you will be able to connect up what you want and do what you need, and then you can just leave the port inactive because you're remote administrating, or you can disconnect the connection and move it to another location. So what my strategy here is, I really am using the OmniSwitch principally for initial setup, installation, and configuration, and or CLI testing and things like that, which require running strictly on the CLI side of things. But then eventually I'll disconnect that connection and move it along to the next machine I'm working on, then allow myself to build all the resources I need to get everything accomplished. Now, the key detail here is that you have to understand that Omniview switches don't like to be disconnected and reconnected constantly. So sometimes that does cause a reset. And you'll have to power cycle the KVM switch to allow you to be able to get the switch to function again. But that's okay. This is something that which is dealable. Back here, I got this guy from a data center clearance. It's got some H to it. It's a little temperamental, but it does what I need. So now we're in the back area behind the front. And here you're going to see these features of the KVM switch. I'm first pointing at the daisy chain connections that can allow you to add multiple switches in a sequence. And I did have that at the beginning, but I decided, you know what? This is a lot of cabling. I only need 8 ports, and it worked. It worked for me very well. Then you have your outputs, which is your VGA 15 pin, your USB single connection. That's all you need. And then you have your bank sets that are designed to allow you to designate what order this switch is going to set in as 00, or the next switch in order, which is 01, the next is 02, and so on. But these allow you to have different configurable states that which you can run with. Now, here you will see, the host 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, and 7 and 8. And they split out into 2 individual sets for each as they become functional. But the key detail here is when you're going to start connecting these things up for the first time, make sure you unplug your Omni switch. It's very important. The OmniView is a little temperamental when it comes to being connected in the clear, suddenly getting voltage, and it's not set up correctly. You could accidentally misconfigure that connection up there and causes a cross short, and that fries the switch. So unplug it, connect up your cable switch, your cable endpoints, then plug it back in and stay safe. Now, the other thing about this is that's important to recognize are these cables. They're huge in comparison to fiber optic, Cat 5, Cat 6, Cat 7, power cables. They're the only thing that can compete with this size of a cable. So what you want to do there is to go to center mass between your two switches and center mass between your 2 racks. So in here, I need 4 connections on this side so I can set up these 7 machines here. And then I have 4 other connections down here for the other 6 machines that I have to address. Yes, I have more servers than I have connections, but I don't connect everything up. I only connect them to the primary machines I need to, but most of them are disconnected in general so that I can move them around between server to server. Now, the thing about moving them around from server to server is that there is a problem with that, and that is the nature of these ports. So if you look here, that's a VGA output connection, and then of course it comes with its USB port. The KVM switch doesn't like being unplugged and plugged into, and that's what I was talking about earlier, that the switch will sometimes zero out and it doesn't work. It's not working correctly. That's because it may have received a variation in voltage and it just kind of puts it in a frozen state. The only fix is to come back to the back of it, unplug the power connector, and plug it back in. Remember, enterprise KVM environments are not really genuinely unplugged until they stop functioning in their 24/7 role. When I'm constantly disconnecting them from these actual plug-ups, as you can see here, and I'm doing that because I need to move that connection around, and as I'm moving that connection around, I am causing some grief for this chassis, and that's why I am taking those steps here to tell you about this, because it's not a failing switch. It's normal. KVM switches just like to be plugged up once, but in a home lab environment, you're going to disconnect it and reconnect it on the fly, and they're capable switches. They're not going to go bad on you. They just might require a power reset. That's all. So I bring that up to you to let you know. Now, the last thing about center massing is the fact that you need to understand that I'm pulling all of these cables out of the equation as they go down to the bottom of the rack. Now, 4 of these are going to pass through to the side and come over onto this side and go down into this rack to provide my connectivity requirements. And I still left everything empty. I took all the cabling out and everything like that, so it's still nice and clean. And by putting your KVM first in before you put power and then your net LAN connectivity, and then lastly you put your most sensitive cables like GBICs and SAS connections and mini SAS connections and fiber optic cabling last, and you want to section them off using your bridge. This is the bridge right here that takes the stress off the cables and allows everything to run fairly smoothly and keep good airflow in the area you're working with. So this is an introduction to planning a KVM solution. I know a lot of you guys and gals out there are thinking, hey, I'm just going to do terminal. Go for it. But I think you're going to discover that having that mouse and keyboard and video card set up kind of combination with your monitor and all of that is a pain in the butt. It really is. I mean, you have to push the card around. This is nice. It cost me $70 for one of these switches, $10 per cable set. They're still cheap to get, and there's several different versions out there made by different manufacturers, so you can get any of them out there, including Apex. But to have that one mouse keyboard video set up that connects to anything everywhere through the switch is a really great speeding up kind of process for what you're trying to do. And as you get into working with Commigin and Docker and enterprise development for like DevOps and things like that, speed now becomes important because it's going to take you time. Now, that's the nice thing about having this. I can set things in quickly, unplug, move over, set the next one up, unplug, move over, set up the next unit, and then I can go in and do remote administration in the clear. Works fine, and it's very successful. So this is Brad Dyke. I hope this helps you some a little bit, at least to understand what it means to understand what a KVM network is to your home lab and or data center, and that you will be able to maybe experiment with that as well. It does allow and free you up quite a bit. And, at that point stage, this is where I'm going to sign off, and I'll have a little bit more tidbits as I'm going to be doing power placements for cabling setups and explaining that out as I bring the enterprise environment up online. And of course, some recommendations on what's called a malleable network trunking strategy that allows you to be able to go in, rip everything out, and quickly put everything back in and do your next version of whatever you're going to do. It's not pretty, but neither is it ugly. it's just really efficient to doing a lot of good things. So this is me signing off. God bless and have a great weekend. Take care.